Hello, this is David Wilkerson with Old School Boxing Talk. This is going to be called the reintroduction of Old School Boxing Talk, the reintroduction of me. Maybe a lot of you are going to see this video for the first time, so we're going to give you a recap of who I am, what I stand for, and what era of boxing I have covered and that I come from. Now, I don't like to do a lot of the stuff that I see here on a lot of message boards where fighters are being judged by their color. No, that's totally stupid. Fighters are fighters. You know, there are great fighters, there are good fighters, there's okay fighters. I don't judge a fighter on his color because I think that's totally stupid. I judge a fighter on what he does in the ring. That's all that matters to me. You know, there are a lot of fighters in boxing that, as fighters, I adore them. I love what they do in the ring. As people, I don't. I mean, case in point, Floyd Mayweather. What he did in the ring, awesome. What he does out the ring, not a fan. Same thing with Tyson. You know, a lot of, and that's, and I draw the line. When I do my videos, I give my opinion, and when it's my opinion, I will tell you it's my opinion. And then if there's fact that I have to back it up, I will tell you fact. And I will, because I've been a boxing fan all my life. I'll be 50 years old this year. I've been a boxing fan all my life. And I remember, and I come from an era where there was boxing on every Saturday, sometimes Sunday, where championships were fought for 15 rounds, and nobody wants to go into why they fucked us out of the 13th, 14th, and 15th round. Yes, don't give me that bigger, stronger, faster bullshit. It was all for television. And I think that, in my opinion, when we took away 13, 14, and 15 and made championship fights 12 rounds, it kind of diminished what being a champion meant. The championship rounds were 13, 14, and 15. What we lost when we got rid of that was there used to be championships like the USBA, the NABF, that were the championships that gave you the step up to the world championship. When you fought a 12-rounder, a 12-rounder actually meant something. You know, in the boxing, to rise through as a contender, rose up, you fought 10-rounders. When you fought a 12-round fight, back in my era, when I was a 12-rounder meant something. It meant that you were on your way to something. Now a 12-rounder means absolutely freaking nothing because the championships is now 12 rounds. So 12-round bout means nothing today. The USBA, the NABF, those titles that used to actually mean something, mean absolutely nothing in today's boxing. Nothing. They were the titles that great fighters like Marlon Starlings and Johnny Bumpsy Bumps, they held those titles on their way to becoming world champions. Those championships used to be the championship you held, and then you learned how to be a champion. You defended that 3 or 4 times, you learned how to be a champion. So that when you won the WBC and the WBA title, which again, in my era, there were only 2 championships, and we hated it then. Imagine how much I hate having 4. But when you won those titles, and you defended them 2, 3, 4 times, you had an idea of what it was like to be a champion. And you also knew your championship rounds were rounds 11 and 12. Though, you had graduated from being a 10-round fighter, now you were a 12-round fighter. Next step up was being a 15-round fighter, which today's fighters will never learn because boxing has been screwed over by television and others that don't care about boxing at all. They've stripped mined the sport. They've taken away all legitimacy of the sport. When we took away rounds 13, 14, and 15, we took away all legitimacy of our sport. All of it. Our championships mean nothing now. These fighters, and when they talk about guys like me, why I don't hold today's fighters in esteem as yesterday's fighters, because they're, honestly to God, they're just average. I'm used to guys fighting 12-rounders to work their way up to a championship. Championship rounds being 12 rounds is a joke to me. I mean, some of the greatest fights in our history, if you strip them away, they'd be gone. Leonard Hearns won. If it was a 12-round fight, Tommy Hearns wins unanimous. Tommy Hearns wins a decision. We don't get the drama in round 13 or 14 where Sugar Ray comes back. We don't get the speech at the end of the 12th round. Angelo Dundee says, "You're blowing it, kid." And Leonard comes out there on the hunt to get rid of Tommy in the 13. We don't get that. You know, we lost so much in boxing. When we went with the 12-round crap, Mike Weaver never wins a WBA title. John Tate would have retained that title. In today's, under today's rules, 13, 14, and 15, there's no reason the hell that should not be reinstated in boxing. One of the things that I liked about the IBF was they were the last ones to cave into that 12-round bullshit. The IBF held on 2 years after the WBC had started it. Then a couple of bullshit states were paid off and they started. The WBA folded, WBA held on for a while. And then finally, the IBF was the last holdout. They would not do it. And finally, the IBF, I guess, they decided to play let's follow the leader. And I really lost all respect for the IBF then because you were the new kid on the block. You had a chance to really say, you know what? No, we're going to keep boxing the way it should be. We're going to keep it the way it belongs. 15 rounds for our championship. And you had a chance, the IBF had a chance to say, no, to really make their championship stand out. The WBC under Jose Sullivan has always been about what was in the best interest of money. They really never gave a fuck about the fighters. They were just in there to line their pockets. That's it. The WBA, which is the oldest of the governing bodies, they started as an NBA, then became the WBA. The WBA is the oldest of them, and they really have gone downhill. They went from being they were the oldest, they were the most respected, then, and they always had the ugliest damn championship belt. The WBC's had the nicest championship belt, I believe, and still does in boxing. But they were, Jose Sullivan they were just about, Jose Sullivan and WBC were just, pretty much, they were just about, I guess a lot of the Latino fighters weren't getting their shot, and this was their chance at helping those guys. But the same token, they just stripped minus. Jose Sullivan just, he did some good, but he did a lot more bad than he did good. The WBA totally fell off the rails, and that's why they're the laughingstock today, because they have like these multiple champions per division. The IBF was the young gun of the bunch, and they had a chance really when all this controversy over 15 round shit started, and they refused to do it. Then they finally, Bob Lee, who was running IBF then, caved in and said, okay, finally we'll go. And the reason I can say that WBA was the last was because when Sugar Ray Leonard fought Marvin Hagler, Marvin Hagler's WBA championship was not on the line because the WBA still had 15 rounds. The WBC was a 12-rounder. Had the unified championship been on the line, the WBA title been on the line, it would have been a 15-round fight. It wasn't because the WBC was doing 12s, that was starting their 12 run at that time, and the WBA wouldn't do it. So the WBA title was not on the line. What happened when after Hagler lost to Leonard, the WBA title was declared vacant. And because of this controversy. Now, that aside, like I said, I'm a boxing historian. I love this. This sport is my passion. There are people that have their favorite sports that are they love, and I have my sports. I love football. I do. I love the college game. I love the pro game. But boxing is my passion, and it is. It always has been. From the time I've competed from the time I watched to the time I competed, I was grateful to be able to compete. I've loved it, and I still do. And I look at a lot of these channels, and there are a lot of guys I like. I mean, Blood Boxing, I like him. Moya Bain 74, I love him. Dante, of course, doing big things. A lot of these channels I love. I listen to them. I listen to them. I see what they're saying, and I enjoy what they're saying. But I have my own spin on this. They do it for what they do it for. I do this because, to me, this is my chance to impart the way I grew up with boxing and my thoughts on boxing, the current product, the past product, and what's going on with boxing today. Now, one of the things that I feel that I've looked at is, I remember a time when we had, and this shows you, you know, how long ago it was. I used to get my allowance every week, and I would go to the bookstore, you know, and I would buy 6 boxing magazines. We had KO magazine, we had a big book of boxing, Boxing Illustrated, Ring magazine. I would walk out of there with 6 different boxing magazines, you know, and that was, you know, they didn't come out every week, they came out every month. But when they came out, those magazines, maybe $3-4 a pop. I think Ring was the most expensive even back then. But that was me, you know. KO had the posters inside, you know, big book of boxing. I loved it. Boxing Illustrated, World of Boxing. You know, they all covered, they had different things, and, you know, and that was my monthly fix of going in there waiting for the next issue. Because back then you didn't, even though they were there, it was, you know, I just didn't feel like saving up to get a subscription, because hell, to get a subscription to one was more expensive than getting, you know, I think the subscription to one magazine was like $40 for a year, and I was like, you know, to spend that $40 for one for a whole year, you know, I just did the math, and it was just like, I'm better off just, you know, going in monthly by month, excuse me, and buying them. Plus the fact that knowing how my house was, I didn't want to take the chance of my covers getting screwed up as they was shoved through the mail slot. So, and that was pretty much it. There was no internet. You know, my boxing magazines, and maybe once in a great while there was an article on somebody, you know, and, you know, that was kind of my world in the boxing. That was kind of my world. Then later on, we got to tape trading, and also another thing that when I was coming up, there was no cable TV, was in its infancy. So we didn't get as much today. So it was really hard. Then tape trading started. And I was able to really learn a lot and see a lot of other fighters do tape trading. And that was awesome. And of course, you know, like I said, as I followed boxing through the ages, I've gone from going to see fights on closed circuit TV, you know, watching Leonard Duran on closed circuit, watching Leonard Hagler on closed circuit, a lot of the big fights, Leonard Hearns on a lot of the big fights back then. I went to see him on closed circuit. Then the beauty of it was, you know, if there was a fight that I missed on closed circuit, the following week, ABC Wild World of Sports had said fight on ABC Wild World of Sports, and that was usually in the afternoon. And you could watch it then, you know. So if you didn't catch you didn't catch the closed circuit, you know. Then of course we came pay-per-view. Well, no, before pay-per-view we got, you know, your pay-per-view. Then we got, you know, HBO started their thing, and you know, premium channels and great fights there, and you know. But then of course came pay-per-view, and I liked pay-per-view at the beginning because I think they were doing it the right way. But then again, I think somewhere along the line, I don't begrudge fighters making money. I don't. But I think somewhere along the line, these guys got so greedy that the undercards. I mean, I remember watching Mike Tyson fight Razor Ruddock, and the undercard was flipping awesome. The undercard. We had Tito Trinidad fighting Maurice Blocker. This is when Trinidad first won the IBF title. We had Simon Brown defending the WBC title. Don King put on some of the best fights. Some of the best. If you were going to buy a Don King pay-per-view, you got your money's worth. Guaranteed. It wasn't like this BS that they're doing today where you get maybe 1 or 2 fights. This what surprised me with the recent Golovkin pay-per-view, Golovkin Jacobs pay-per-view, and I said it in the video I did for them, was like, wow, shocking, you had 4 pretty good fights, which usually you know, thanks to Senor Mayweather, you got hit. He had to take all the money for himself so that the guys on the undercard got pretty much nothing, and he couldn't have a decent undercard fight. You know, his fight with Canelo, I was just so happy. I was shocked that that we had the Danny Garcia, Lucas Matisse fight on there, but you know, but that was, you know, and then it was, you know, pretty, yeah. average, But what I'm saying is, if you're going to, for pay-per-view, the way it was done in the past was when you did a pay-per-view, you were given great fights. Great fights. You weren't given BS fights like you are today on pay-per-view. You were given great fights. You were given world title fights. Like I said, Don King was my favorite guy. Because when you ordered a Mike Tyson pay-per-view, Don figured, hell, Tyson was blasting everybody out in a couple seconds. So let me load this undercard. And even in the case of the fight with Razor Ruddock, where Ruddock was in there and they had an actual fight, Don King still loaded the undercard. Don King was the guy that his fighters, yeah, he was a crook. Yeah, there was stories about Don King robbing his fighters, whatever. But the point is, he might have robbed his fighters, but Don King never robbed the fans. The people in attendance got their money's worth. And if you bought a pay-per-view from Don King, you got your money's worth. You got maybe, you had the main event, whatever the main was, and you had maybe 3 or 4 undercard fights. You had 3 fights under that could main event any goddamn HBO show or Showtime show. That was when boxing was great. And that was great. Like I said, that card, Tyson Ruddock, okay, that was this is after Tyson lost to Douglas. Tyson's fighting his way back up. But you turn around, you had like I said, you had Tito Trinidad versus Maurice Blocker. I believe Julian Jackson was on that undercard, and I know Simon Brown was on it defending his title. And they weren't against guys that were nobodies. It's not like Don King was like, I'll put a title on the line, but I'm going to put a puck with my top guy against little chumps. No, Don King actually put his guys against top guys. So there was a chance that the title could change hands because you were fighting some quality guys. And the main event, so when you ordered a Don King pay-per-view, whoa, you had a flipping night of boxing that was like, oh my God. I can't wait. That's one of the tapes I have to convert over. I tape, VCR's big now. I have to convert that over to DVD. That was, special. Boxing is my passion. I am passionate about boxing. Also, I see a lot of things with how fighters are ranked today and how people can keep comparing fighters from the past to fighters of the present. I don't think today's fighters are anywhere near as good as yesteryear's fighters. And I'm going to say that with all honesty, they're not. Now, there are people, when you see this video, they're going to say, oh, you're out of your flipping mind. How can you do this? Because I'm going to go down the 8 original, not this bullshit, these junior divisions, because that's bullshit. I'm going to go down some of the 8, because I don't know all the champions and all the 8s, but I'm going to go down the ones I know. I'm going to start the featherweight division. I'm going to go featherweight division back in maybe 82, 83. There were 2 champions. Eusebio Pedrosa and Salvador Sanchez were the featherweight champions. Hell, I might even go back. Matter of fact, you know what? I'll move a division down. Jolton Jeff Chandler. Jolton Jeff Chandler was the WBA champion. Lupe Pinto was the WBC champion. I don't think any of today's bantamweights could beat either one of them. Matter of fact, I just don't see it. 15 rounds against either Lupe Pinto or Jeff Chandler. None of these champions, none of these guys, they don't touch him. Now I'm going to move up to featherweight. At this time period, Salvador Sanchez and Eusebio Pedrosa were the champions. Look at the featherweight division today with Gary Russell Jr. and the rest of these clowns. Some of these guys I don't even know. None of them beat Sanchez or Pedrosa. None of them. Now we're going to skip over 130 and we're going to, okay. My opinion, because this is what you're going to learn about me. I don't really like the junior divisions. I don't, because I feel that they're a waste of space. But every once in a while, there's a special fighter that comes out of these junior divisions, and the guy that I watched and I've studied divisions that I believe is the best fighter to ever fight in those divisions. At 130 pounds, the junior lightweight division, in my opinion, the greatest fighter to ever fight at 130 pounds is Floyd Mayweather Jr. bar none. I don't think there's ever been a 130-pound fighter better than Mayweather, because Mayweather at 130 was a beast, an absolute beast. At 140 pounds, in my opinion, the greatest fighter to ever fight at 140 pounds was Aaron the Hawk Pryor, bar none. If you have a better 140-pounder, I don't think so. Don't come with these fanboy bullshit, because in my opinion, pound for pound, man for man, at those weight classes, Mayweather was the best at 130. Aaron the Hawk Pryor was the best at 140. Now, I digress. Let's get back to business here. We did featherweight. Now we're going to move up to lightweight. And, okay, we looked at lightweight division today. The greatest lightweight champion of all time is Roberto Duran, bar none. But I'm going to take Duran out of this conversation for this moment, because at this moment in time, when I'm talking about, Duran had been moved up to welterweight. So now I'm going to compare. If I compare the lightweight division then, and I believe this time the lightweight champions were Hilmer Kenty and Jim Watt. As compared to today's lightweight division, yeah, I think Mikey Garcia might have been able to beat both of those guys. Okay, so that's my one concession about yesteryear versus today, the lightweight division, because at that time, the lightweight division after Duran left, the champions there, the two guys at the time period I'm talking about, 80, 82, 83, yeah, Mikey Garcia, who's in the division right now, he could beat Jim Watt, and he could beat Hilmer Kenty. Kenty wouldn't be easy, but yeah, okay. Now we're going to move to 147. Let's look at 147 today. Keith Thurman is the WBA, WBC champion. Kell Brooks is the IBF champion. And, of course, Manny Pacquiao's the WBO belt. The champions at 147 at this time were Leonard and Hearns. This is before the unification between Leonard and Hearns. And none of them four beat Leonard or Hearns. I could have skipped this because I'm sorry. Manny Pacquiao wouldn't last against Sugar Ray Leonard or Tommy Hearns. Keith Thurman, no. Kell Brooks, please. So no. So we understand that today's welterweight champions, the guys' welterweight division, to the top of the welterweight division, no. Let's move to the middleweight division. Golovkin holds all but one belt, and Sanders holds the other belt. And those two guys versus Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Really? Really? Do I need to go into this? At that time period in 80, I'm talking about 82, 83, Hagler kills Golovkin. Tom Loeffler would not have let Golovkin anywhere near Marvin Hagler. Nowhere near Marvin. Tom Loeffler, if you told Tom Loeffler Gennady Golovkin was fighting the 82, 83 version of Marvin Hagler, Tom Loeffler would tell you we're going to be sick that day. He'd write a note early. There's no way in hell. And Billy Joe Sanders, please, he probably wouldn't be in that era, he probably wouldn't be the best damn middleweight in Britain. He probably couldn't beat Tony Cipian or Alan Minter. So please, imagine having to beat this, please. Okay, now let's go slide on ones to light heavyweight. And this is good. We have our two current champions, which are Andre Ward and Adonis Stevenson, against the two champions at this time period, Michael Spinks and Matthew Saad Muhammad. This is before Saad Muhammad lost the belt to Dwight Quaid. Spinks. Let me see. So we're going to take Spinks. In a toss-up, Michael Spinks beats Kovalev. Michael Spinks beats Stevenson. Michael Spinks beats Andre Ward. Matthew Saad Muhammad beats Adonis Stevenson. It'd be a hell of a fight. But no, Andre Ward beats Saad Muhammad. But Mike, at the end of the day, Michael Spinks, if Michael Spinks of 82, 83 were fought in today's boxing, he kills anything and everybody in the light heavyweight division. Point blank, no questions asked. You know, he does. That light heavyweight division was a murder's row. Hell, even the guys that weren't champions would be tough. Same thing with welterweight. Same thing could be said for welterweight, because if you look at the welterweight division in the 82, 83, you look at guys like Duran, Benitez, Pepino, Cuevas. If those guys at that time in their careers were transported to today's boxing, these guys can't touch them. Shit. Think about it. Benitez, Wilfred Benitez is one of the most underrated great fighters of all time. Like I said, I don't count 140, 140 pounds. I don't like the junior divisions. But the only reason I consider Aaron Pryor better than Benitez is because Aaron Pryor stayed there longer. You know, that's just it. Benitez won his first title beating Antonio Cervantes at 17. Of course, Pryor wanted beating Cervantes later on for the same, same title, But the point is, Benitez at 147, his only loss was to Leonard. Think about it. Benitez didn't lose another fight until he fought Tommy Hearns. And when he lost his final fight against Matthew Hatton, he was shot over the hill. And, the fact that we all know Wilfred Benitez never trained for a fight. Benitez was busy partying, but on God-given natural ability. And that's what happened to Benitez. Same thing happened to Roy Jones, is that after a while, Father Time catches up to you. That natural ability kind of slows up. And those natural reflexes that you had kind of slow up. And you get caught. And you're not in shape. And that's what hurt Benitez. But in this time period, this is after Benitez has only lost to Leonard. And if you put that Benitez in today's boxing, with 4 champions, I'm going to tell you what, with 4 champions, you take Leonard, Duran, Hearns, and Benitez, there's your 4 champions. And Pepino Cuevas is probably your number 1 contender for two of those damn belts. And I don't care who likes it or who doesn't like it. Those guys at 180, those guys at 82, 83 against today's crop of welterweights, maybe Earl Spence Jr. might be the exception, but I don't know, because Earl Spence Jr. hasn't been tested. But I can guarantee you Manny Pacquiao doesn't. I don't think Manny Pacquiao beats Pepino Cuevas. I'm sorry. Look, I like Manny Pacquiao. I think Manny's a special kind of guy. But when I look at Manny Pacquiao's career, and I go back, and when some of you fanboys compare him to the greats, it's just not happening. There's not a single weight class Manny Pacquiao's won a champion in the legitimate 8 weight classes that Manny Pacquiao's won a championship in, that I can say he's better than this guy. He might be better than some of the average guys, but if I take in Manny Pacquiao, he's won a title at featherweight. Is he better than Salvador Sanchez, or Eusebio Pedrosa? Hell no. Lightweight. Please. He couldn't beat Jim Watt or Hilmer Kenty. Welterweight, are you fucking crazy? He couldn't beat Floyd Mayweather. Come on. Leonard, Hearns, Duran, Benitez, please. That's just, like I said, again, that's my opinion. Now we've done light heavyweight, now we're going to move to heavyweight. The heavyweight division today is pretty stacked. We got oh, what the hell? Joshua. We got the kid in Australia. With belts. Okay. 3 guys carrying 4 belts. And this time we had Larry Holmes was the dominant WBC heavyweight champion. And I don't know, the WBA title is being flopped around. So I'm going to throw the WBA title out. I'm just going to say Larry Holmes versus the rest. Larry Holmes versus what's out there. And Larry Holmes in 82, 83 versus today's heavyweights. Larry Holmes in a walk. Larry Holmes beats these guys. Anthony Joshua. Yeah, he sticks around for a while, but Larry Holmes beats him. Larry Holmes, he may go to distance, but Larry beats him. Let me see. Deontay Wilder. He sticks around for a while, but Larry Holmes beats him. Tony Parker. Yeah, Larry Holmes beats him. I mean, and I'll go to number 1 contender Klitschko. Larry Holmes beats him. Luis Ortiz, Larry Holmes beats him. So this is my thing. Don't compare the era. Don't compare the eras, because if you take the great fighters of the past, you put them in today's era, and you're marching them up. Now remember, when you grade them, that means they have all the advantages of today's fighters, plus their own what they bring into the ring. You could not. Those guys, don't tell me the bigger, stronger, faster shit, because you're saying if you move those guys into today's era, with today's training, with today's techniques, along with what they're bringing to the game, they crush today's competition. Plain and simple. Because, see, here's the thing about it. Those guys, unlike today's fighters, those guys were fighting not only for money, which you do, but those guys were fighting for pride. Today's fighters only care about how much money they made, and I call it the Mayweatherization of boxing. They don't fight for pride of being the very best. That's why they don't fight the best. How much dollar signs? There were guys who fought the best guys, you know, let me fight this guy. This is a top guy. Let me fight this guy. Because the next time around, the money's going to be there down the line. But I want to be proven that I'm the best in the world. There were times that, there were champions that say, hey, I've got to be the only one out there. Marvin Hagler didn't have that problem because the middleweight title was unified. But Aaron Pryor for years screamed and hollered that he wanted that rematch. He wanted that unification with Saul Manby. Back in 82, 83, you couldn't get a WBA, WBC unification because those guys weren't willing to fight. The guys that were the best wanted to fight, but there were other guys who knew they were limited, that they weren't going to fight you. I mean, think about this. Alexis Arguello dominated at 135. Probably the most dominant lightweight champion since Duran. Moves up. You think Don King was going to put him in with Saul Manby, who was the WBC champion? Usually, whatever belt you're holding at one class, you move up, you fight for that belt the next class. Do you think Alexis Arguello Don King was ever going to put Saul Manby in there with Alexis Arguello? Hell no. But who took the fight? Aaron Pryor said, yeah. And in today's boxing, you think do you think a guy like that would take that? I mean, look at Bob Arum's going through the same damn thing with Terrence Crawford and Manny Pacquiao. He's got this monster 140 saying, hey, yeah, we go up to 147. Let's make the Pacquiao fight. You got Michael Kentz and Manny Pacquiao's Freddie roasted Pacquiao. People say, fuck no, we're not fighting Terrence Crawford. We're going to fight Keith Horn. Today's fighters are not as good as yesterday's fighters. They're just not. They don't have the heart. They don't have the will. They don't have the desire. They're there to make money. The fighters of the past, those guys were fucking animals. We fought for the pride of being the very best. If you said you were better than me, well, we had to fight. I need to find out. Well, I need to find out. You told Ray Leonard Tommy Hearns was better than him. Ray Leonard said, well, I need to find out. I want to know about that. Yeah, the money's going to be there, but I want to know. You told Michael Spinks Saad Muhammad was better than him. He said, I want to know. But of course, Dwight Muhammad Quaid knocked off Saad Muhammad. And we said, well, maybe Dwight Muhammad Quaid is better than you. Michael Spinks said, well, I want to know. Let's do it. I want to know. Michael Spinks, you can't win the heavyweight title from Larry Holmes. We can get you a fight with a cheaper, with a paper champion. No, I think I want to try Larry on for size. Michael, you're the universe. Michael, you're the lineal heavyweight champion, and you don't have to fight Mike Tyson. We can fight around Mike Tyson. No, I want to know. I want to know. I want to know in my heart of hearts. How good am I? Am I good enough to beat this guy? He wasn't. But the point is, unlike today's fighters, Michael Spinks took on the challenge. The fighters of the past took on the challenge. They took on the challenge. Today's fighters aren't taking on a challenge. They're not willing to. Only one guy I've seen today's fighters that seem to be willing to, that doesn't give lip service to it, is Vasily Lomachenko. He just called out. He just called out the WBC lightweight champion, Mikey Garcia. Lomachenko don't have to call out Mikey Garcia. He can say, hey, I'm at 130 pounds. I can cherry pick my way. I can fight whoever I want at 130 pounds. But you know what I like about Lomachenko? Yes, he lost a fight. And let me tell you something. Losing a fight does not end a career. Great fighters have lost. It's not how you lose. It's not what happens when you lose. It's what happens when you come back from that loss. Marvin Hagler lost early in his career. In my opinion, one of the greatest middleweight champions of all time. Got to be top 5. In my opinion. Great fighters have lost. Sugar Ray Leonard lost to Duran, came back. Great ones have lost and have come back. Today's boxing perpetrated by the BS of HBO seems to be, let's keep him undefeated because it's worth more. That O means so much. That O don't mean shit. That O means that you haven't fought anybody. That O means that, that O a lot of times means you haven't fought anybody. I'm not going to say a lot of times O means you haven't fought anybody. That O a lot of times means that you've been protected. That's what that O a lot of times means. Lomachenko's a guy who, in his very second pro fight, fought one of the best guys at featherweight. Yeah, he lost a decision. Yeah, he lost a young fighter in his second pro fight. Lost a decision. All right. Came back his next fight and beat a young man, Gary Russell Jr., who's supposed to be a fucking boogeyman. And dominated Gary Russell Jr. Dominated. Why? Gary Russell Jr. had an O, but Gary Russell Jr.'s O was built up against TBA, to be announced. Gary Russell Jr.'s O was built up against a bunch of guys that couldn't beat him if their life depended on it. He didn't fight anybody. And when he fought somebody in Lomachenko, Gary Russell Jr. got his ass handed to him. Excuse me. Don't sell me on the O, because I've seen so many fighters with the O, when they get tested, you find out this guy's not as good as he says he is. Lomachenko's one of the rare fighters in today's boxing that I like, because he reminds me of the early days of boxing, when I grew up watching boxing, when if you told me you were better than me and we were in the same weight class, well, we need to find out. I went to my promoter and said, yo, let's get this guy. Let's make this fight. Let's make this fight happen, because he says he's better than me, and I want to know. I need to know. Am I the best at this weight class, or is this guy better than me? I need to know. Another prime example, Marlon Sterling, Donald Curry. These guys, young welterweights, undefeated when they met the first time. Curry said he's better than Sterling. Who's the better man? Sterling said I'm better. Curry said I'm better. Well, we find out. They found out Donald Curry was the better man. Marlon Sterling said, hey, you got a gift decision. I think I was coming on, whatever. Donald Curry said, run it back. They ran it back. Donald Curry won again. But the point is, they were not afraid to find out who the better man was. Of course, Marlon Sterling went on to have a hell of a career, and so did Donald Curry. But the point is, they were not afraid. Lloyd Huntington knocks off Donald Curry. What most people would say, hey, you avoid Marlon Sterling at all costs, because Marlon Sterling's a tricky fighter. Then there are those people that said, yeah, you could take Sterling. But Lloyd Huntington said, I want to know. I want to know. Am I as good as they're saying? I want to know. He found out Marlon Sterling was a better man. No shame in that. I think nobody thinks any less of Lloyd Huntington. Nobody thinks any less of Lloyd Huntington. Nobody thinks any less of the great fighters when they fight the best guys out there and they lose. When Golovkin fought Jacobs, it was a hell of a fight. I personally thought Golovkin won, and I'll stand by that. It was a close fight, but I think that, in my eyes, to beat the champion, you want to take the champion's title, you got to beat the champion. I don't think Danny Jacobs did enough to beat the champion. So Golovkin, in my eyes, won the fight. It was a close fight, 114-112, but Golovkin won it. But the point of the matter is, Danny Jacobs, it's kind of funny how in this world where we need to be undefeated to be worth something, Danny Jacobs' stock rose in a loss. He loses a fight and everybody thinks more of him. When the best meet the best, win, lose, or draw. When the best meet the best, it's not going to be a cakewalk. And that's what Golovkin found out. When he stepped up, he was given a chance to fight the best, and he fought the best. He got by Jacobs. When the best meet the best, and I personally I'm not one of these guys that hate Golovkin. I just said, hey, I just want to know what you're made of. I want to see you test it. Same thing like I have with young Earl Spence. I'm not willing to anoint. I look at all the athletic ability and all the good things Earl Spence Jr. does, but I'm not ready to crown him because I want to see you test it. In my opinion, right now, the best welterweight in the world right now is Keith Thurman. Why? Because Keith Thurman's been through fire. He's been through smoke. He's been there. He's been tested. He's been hit. He's been hurt. He's had to reach back. He's been in adversity. Young Spence hasn't been there. The same reason why, and I mean, I did pick against Keith Thurman in a fight with Danny Garcia because I felt Danny Garcia had already been proven and tested at 140. And would bring that up, but, you know, Keith Thurman did what he had to do. And I give Keith Thurman some credit because Keith Thurman is, for the most part, willing to fight whoever. But I think, again, my problem with Thurman is, again, he's a guy that's looking at dollar sign. He's not a guy that says, I want to be the best. Because if he was, when you're offered $10 million and a chance to usurp and bypass all the bullshit, to fight Earl Spence maybe 2-3 fights ago, and you turned it down from if it's true that Mayweather offered him $10 million, if you don't take that fight, I have to question Keith Thurman. Because if you're confident in yourself and Mayweather's saying, well, we're going to bypass all the political bullshit because I got that kind of clout and I'll give you $10 million to fight Earl Spence. If you were going to do that, you should have done that then because young Spence was young Spence. He wasn't where he is now. And if Keith Thurman was going to beat him, he should have done it then. But maybe Keith Thurman, on the other hand, said, I want him to progress. I want to see what he's made of. I want to let him, want to let him mature a little bit. So, to me, Keith Thurman is a bit of a contradiction. He's a bit of a puzzle that I'm looking forward to seeing how he goes. He's not Mayweather, which I love. Because fighting Danny Garcia, I mean, come on, there are a lot of guys, that would sit there, yeah, let Danny hold that title there, and I'm just going to keep this belt here, and I'm going to walk around. Now the big question for Keith Thurman is, do you fight the winner of Earl Spence versus Kell Brook? Now, hopefully, Peterson, by way of the wretched WBA, is the WBA regular title. The WBA's been saying that we're trying to get rid of these titles, whatever. So I guess maybe with Peterson facing Thurman, that will clear up and there will be only one champion at one WBA champion at welterweight. We hope, because apparently now there's only one champion at middleweight, and that's Golovkin. Since Jacobs lost and the regular title Jacobs was holding, and he brought that in and he lost Golovkin, so there's only one champion. So hopefully we're going to see more of that. If the WBA does what it usually doesn't do, and that's keep its word. I want to see guys fight the best. Yes, you want to make a buck. I understand that, but at the same time, you got to fight the best. You have to. It's just one of the things, and I think that when you got, right now, boxing has become so network controlled that it's a shame. HBO and ESPN seem to want to do their thing, and I think they screwed up. Honestly, I think HBO and ESPN really screwed up because they had a chance, really, and if they cared about you doing something, I think they'll do it down the road, but I think here's what happened. ESPN had the PBC. You mean to tell me you can't keep both the PBC and Oscar De La Hoya's little whatever the hell he's got? You can't keep them both? No, you drop PBC for that, and Oscar's not going to give you guys like Danny Garcia. He's not going to give you top quality guys because he doesn't have them. And I think that's where ESPN, like with their little idiot Dan Raphael and who's HBO and Jim Lampley are telling him what the hell to write and who the hell. This is why Gennady Golovkin is now the mythological pound-for-pound #1 fighter in the world. Really? Is anybody really buying that other than HBO and the idiots that follow Dan Raphael on ESPN? Is anybody really following that? Because if you are, you're dumb as dirt and you just need to stop watching boxing altogether. Golovkin is not the best fighter in the world today. Pound for pound, please. He's barely the best middleweight. When you say pound for pound, that means any weight class in boxing, I could stick you in there and you would be good enough to beat the best. I'm sorry. I take Golovkin and put him at welterweight. Keith Thurman murks him. I put him at 154 pounds. He gets destroyed by, whether it be Andres, whether it be Laura, you know, whether it be the one Charlo there. Hell, he's got a Charlo of his own that's on his heels for the WBC title. I want to see what the hell happens there. You think he's gonna, he's a light heavyweight, he's gonna beat Andre Ward, Adonis Stevenson, Sergey Kovalev? I don't give a fuck what you did to young Kovalev when they were sparring. Right now, Gennady Golovkin showed us. If he fought Sergey Kovalev now, Kovalev knocks him the fuck out. Clean out. And that's another thing I want to talk about. Like I said, a lot of these guys, they say, a guy takes a loss, they don't like him. I've always been a big Sergey Kovalev fan. I love Sergey Kovalev, the fighter. Now, from what I hear, he's a little racist idiot outside the ring, and that's his business. I don't care. Like I said, it goes back to the Mayweather theory that as a fighter, I liked him as a fighter. As a person, not so much. But I respect Sergey Kovalev, and I don't think Kovalev should drop. I'm sorry, Sergey Kovalev lost to Andre Ward. Andre Ward, in my opinion, is the #1 fighter pound for pound in the world. Sergey Kovalev should be no less than number 4 or 5. Lomachenko needs to be pushed up in there. Lomachenko has earned the right to be put up in there. Keith Thurman, off the value of his win over Danny Garcia, should be up in the pound for pound list. You know, the pound for pound list has to be done, and you have to put the list together. First of all, here's where they polluted and they screwed up thanks to HBO. The pound for pound list was put together in the 30s because Joe Louis was such a dominant champion that that was all they talked about. So the pound for pound list was put together so that people started talking about the other fighters outside of the heavyweight division to give these guys some shine. Because the heavyweight division was, well, the heavyweight division. What HBO and its perversion did to kiss the ass, to try to suck up to the Klitschko, we're going to put Klitschko in there with pound for pound. Pound for pound was not meant for the heavyweight division. It was meant for the guys under heavyweight. That's what it was meant for. It was meant for guys like Lomachenko. It was meant for guys like Golovkin. It was meant for guys like Sergey Kovalev. The pound for pound was meant for those guys. It was not meant for the heavyweights. It was meant for the guys below heavyweight to compare them with each other because at the time they weren't getting any love. Why do you think, Sugar Ray Robinson? That's why the debate was Sugar Ray Robinson, greatest fighter of all time, pound for pound. And that's what really spurred it because you had Robinson, you had Henry Armstrong, who's won titles at 3 weight classes. So the talk was, hey, let's bring some attention to these guys because we all talked about Joe Louis, but nobody's really talking about these guys. So it was a thing where the national media said the pound for pound list started to bring attention to the lower weight classes, to get people talking about the lower weight classes. The heavyweights are not meant to be part of it. And it just goes to show you how corporate America has perverted boxing and has perverted the history of boxing. And how corporate America doesn't really give a fuck about boxing. It doesn't. Because, they don't do this shit to football. They don't do it to basketball. They don't do it to baseball. My God, they hold baseball the same esteem, honestly, you hold baseball and should be holding boxing in. In 1942, was 42, 44, between there, when we were at war with fucking Germany, the President of the United States came out, said to Joe Louis, Joe, these are the kind of muscles we're going to need to beat the Nazis. When Joe Louis fought Max Schmeling for the 2nd time, Hitler turned that shit up before the fucking fight was over. Why? Because it crossed international boundaries. Baseball doesn't do that. No sport in this world does it other than boxing, where the best guy from this country can fight the best guy from that country. And you know what? When boxing is done right, like it's done in the UK, it's national pride. My guy versus your guy. And if you fight a UK fighter, and you're going to see this when Kell Brooks fights Earl Spence Jr., every fucking Briton, every fucking body from the UK is going to be backing Kell Brooks, even though they don't think he could win, but that's their guy. In the United States, we don't do that. We used to, but we don't anymore. And I'm not going to blame the races of the skin. I'm going to blame corporate America and the corporatizing of our sports. Boxing is pure. One man against another man. You step in there. You bring your best, I bring my best. 15 rounds for the championship of the world. Are you better than me? I don't know. But I damn sure want to know. If you can beat me, hey, God bless you, man. Tonight you're the better man, but I'd like to have the opportunity to run it back. My country versus your country. That is boxing at its very best, ladies and gentlemen. That is the purity of boxing that you get in no other sport. No other sport do you get the purity of two men walking into a ring. Two men putting it all on the line, knowing that at any moment, when any one shot, one of them may walk in, one of them may be stretchered out. How do you come back from that? Emo Griffith never got over it when he killed Benny Kid Perret. Emo Griffith never got over it. Perez never got over hurting the kid he fought on HBO. He never got over it. There was a young amateur fighter just died. You don't hear it, and I don't want to hear the MMA deal because this hasn't happened in MMA. Not a lot, not as much as it has in boxing. Boxing is pure at its best. It's the best of us, it's the worst of us. That is why we love it. And that's why we have to keep corporate America from fucking it. Because yes, we love the NFL. Nobody's died on the football field yet. Yes, we love the NBA. Nobody's ever died on a basketball court. Yes, we love Major League Baseball. Nobody's ever died in a baseball diamond. Put two men in a boxing ring. We hold our breath. We hope they both come out. But in the back of our minds, they know it. We know it. The trainer, the families know it. One of them might not make it out of here. And when he does make it out of here, he's not the same guy. Every time you step into that ring, you leave a bit of yourself in there. Marvin Hagler was never the same after fighting John the Beast Mugabe. Reports from his trainers in his locker room said Marvin was pissing blood. That never happened before. The Petronelli brothers wanted him to retire then. Had Marvin listened, there would have been no fight with Hagler. That's when Leonard decided, I'll fight this guy, because Sugar Ray Leonard saw that after the Mugabe fight, he saw the damage to Marvin Hagler. He said, now I need to get ready. When he saw Hagler versus Hearns, he said, now. He said, now I can take him. Because I've been sitting off, I've been resting up. Now is the moment. He talked to Mike Trainer. He said, we want this, we want that, we want this, we want 12 rounds. We give him Marvin the money we want. I get the glory I want. Because Sugar Ray Leonard saw that Marvin Hagler had left so much of himself. Had lost so much of himself in that Mugabe fight. Lost more of himself in the Hearns fight. That when Leonard got to him, Leonard was just picking the shells, picking the bones. But it might not have just been Leonard. It might have just been, maybe it wasn't Leonard. Maybe it would have been Michael Nunn would have been the guy that when he got to Hagler would have been picking the bones of Hagler. We don't know. Maybe, and it's that fear that, don't you think, just think about something. Don't you think it's that fear that made Floyd Mayweather change up his style? Roy Jones talked about after watching Gerald McClellan, what happened to Gerald McClellan versus Nigel Benn, how that messed with him mentally. This is hurt business over here, man. Hurt. Life or death. Every time you step into a boxing ring, your life is on the line. And that is why we love it. That is why we tune in. That is why it will never die. And that is why we as the fans of this great noble endeavor must keep corporate America, people like Dan Raphael, people like Jim Lampley, from bastardizing it more than they have. We the fans, I've seen a brother call for a boycott of Golden Boy. And I think he's right. But I also think we need to boycott ESPN. We need to boycott HBO. We want our boxing back the way it belongs. We got to boycott these fighters that give us that are so corporatized, worrying about their next Nike endorsement, that they're not willing to fight the next guy, the best guy out there. If you're afraid, this isn't a business for you. It's not. You have to have it here, man, to be a fighter. Everybody that can step in that ring is not a fighter because everybody doesn't have it here. You can tell the good ones from the great ones. But the great ones are always saying, man, you're going to kill me. I'm not, no. I'll go out. You're going to kill me to beat me. You can look in their eyes and you can see. I have yet to see that in today's fighters. Except for Lomachenko, who's willing to take the risk to be great. I want to see more Lomachenkos and far less Mayweathers. So that's what I want to see more today's fighters. Be more like Lomachenko, maybe more like Floyd, maybe more like Keith Thurman, and nowhere near Floyd Mayweather. We don't cherry pick and fight guys after they're 10 years after they're past their prime. Floyd Mayweather was really serious. He'd have fought Miguel Cotto back when they were both at the top of their game at 147, before Cotto was damaged by Margarito. Floyd could have fought him. But Floyd's position is, I'm going to punish Aaron by not fighting this guy. No, Floyd, your position was, I'm afraid to fight Miguel Cotto, because if you'd fought Miguel Cotto back when Miguel Cotto, before the Margarito fight, Miguel Cotto would have crushed your ribs. And you know this. So, like I said, this is a reintroduction of Old School Boxing Talk. This is what I'm about. I'm about the best fighting the best. I'm about boxing the way it should be, not corporatized. I like what Al Heyman is doing. I just want to see if Al Heyman is going to stick to it and keep putting the best against the best in his stable. We need that. We need to go back to, if we're going to do pay-per-view, go back to days where you put 3 or 4 championship fights on a card where you gave the fans their money's worth. You charged them $80 for this shit. Come on, give me something. Boxing back on network TV is a good thing. As far as I'm concerned, the networks, you owe us. You fucked over our sport. You strip mined our sport. It's time for you to pay back. Time for the networks to give boxing something back, because we've taken so much from it. Till next time, it's Doug Wilkerson signing off. Old School Boxing Talk. Long live the fighters.